I mean, I was surprised because I'd actually forgot that we were doing a podcast tonight, but always thankful that you messaged me to remind me. And even more so tonight because The Wedding Singer with Adam Sandler was on downstairs on the TV. I was like, fucking hell, yes, saved the day.
Is that? Which does that come under? Does that come under the beginning and the end, or is he still all right in that?
I think that's the tipping point. I don't mind The Wedding Singer. It's just I think
what saves The Wedding Singer?
You what? What saves The Wedding Singer?
The soundtrack.
Yeah, cracking soundtrack.
And the Billy Idol cameo.
Yeah, I think Drew Barrymore's brilliant. I always feel for Drew Barrymore when she's in Adam Sandler films because I think she's a great actress. She's a great comedy actress as well. I think Drew Barrymore.
I didn't mind. You know, I didn't mind with them two. I forgot they've done a few together. It's a good point. That I didn't mind 50 First Dates.
Yeah, I mean,
Rob Schneider almost spoils it as usual, but other than that, I thought it was all right. I thought it was there's some funny bits in it.
Yeah, on the spectrum of Adam Sandler films.
Yeah,
it's the higher end.
Jumping off Barton Bridge tackle, is it? It's like
no.
I can sit through this, but I reckon The Wedding Singer's sort of. I get where you're coming from. It's like it's all right. Do you know what I mean? Whereas when you get into I can't remember. There's is it Click and Mr. Deeds and stuff like that, and Grown Up.
Yeah.
Fuck, that's when I
didn't mind Grown Ups though, to be honest.
I know Rock's in it, innit?
Yeah, and I not Grown Up. No. I'm getting the wrong one. Grown Ups I thought was shit. I thought it was the other one with Adam Sandler in, but I don't think he wrote it. Where he's the failing comedian, where he's ill. And Seth Rogen.
Funny People.
Funny People. I didn't mind that.
Funny People was all right, but the thing I struggled with was Judd Apatow wrote it, didn't he?
Yeah.
And I quite like unlike a lot of people, I quite like Judd Apatow because he was in the Larry Sanders Show, which I think he was one of the writers for that, and I love Larry Sanders show. I love that show. But I'm not a massive fan of Superbad and that sort of. I thought Knots Up was all right.
Yeah,
Mrs. 40 was average, but I get where you come with Funny People. I think the problem I had with it, the second act or whatever you call it, was just like a whole movie because his kids are in it as well, and that's his wife Leslie Mann.
Yeah,
it's set. I think they even filmed it in his house or something. It was just, I just think it didn't go anywhere for the last bit. And the thing as well is what I don't like about when you have films about stand up, the stand up in the film doesn't tend to be that funny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when you were watching him on stage, like when Seth Rogen was doing his act and some of the other people, it wasn't great. It was like,
I completely get you. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if you're gonna I think that's part of the problem as well. Judd Apatow, he was a comedian, and he said he knew enough about comedy to know he wasn't a good enough comedian.
He put unfunny people in funny people.
Yeah, and and all the cameos there's a couple of
Eminem cameo in there, and there's a few of them in there. They don't get a big party or something where at the end I think Larry and Jerry Seinfeld in it as well. I think Jerry
Seinfeld's in it. I think Ray Romano's in it as well. There's a few from the stand-up community they're in it, but it's not great. It's I don't know. There's a few that's probably not one of Adam Sandler's worst, but it's certainly not. It's not like Happy Gilmore, Big Daddy Tackle.
Yeah. Anyway, we are digressing down an Adam Sandler rabbit hole.
I'll let you do it.
And we need to file that away because him and Craig David are making far too many appearances on our fucking. we just call it the Adam Sandler and Craig David bashing hour.
Really? Things on a whole new meaning. What they get up to is up to them. We're not here to judge.
How would the kids look?
Listen,
can you imagine that? An Adam Sandler, Craig.
The music and the film careers aren't going anywhere. So, do you know what I mean? Maybe that's the next stage.
An Adam Sandler and Craig David hybrid put a pot on the world. Fuck it, it's 2020, man. Anything.
Listen, that wouldn't even. That would probably make page 10 of the paper.
Yeah,
this day and age, it's that crazy.
I mean, and as we talk, it is getting crazy and crazier out there. Anyway, hello, I'm Scotty. That's Motty back again to talk about current topics that's been happening in the news, and if we were going to pick a year to start a podcast to talk about current topics, we couldn't have picked a bigger one. I'm glad my co-host there coughed down the mic to interrupt my flow. He's usually breaking wind in one way or another. There's some sort of gas or air coming out of him. Anyway, to kick off the show tonight, we're going to be talking about the crossing of the channel. We have people, humans that are crossing the channel, families. I am fucking tired of hearing this rhetoric of dehumanizing them as illegal aliens or asylum seekers or immigrants. They are people. There was an 8-month pregnant woman that was part of that boat. There was a tiny baby on that boat, and I'm tired of seeing it in the newspapers where they are labeling them all under this umbrella term to dehumanize them and then help with the political agenda that you've got the likes of Nigel Farage, the Daily Mail, and Priti Patel, who just using it to fucking, I think in many ways, hide the shit show that's going on with COVID. Nigel Farage this week was it London invasion? I think it was using sort of invasion. It was using like the war rhetoric when I think 12 lads got off a dinger. Listen, what sort of trouble have they got to be going through to put an 8-month pregnant lady and a newborn on a boat to cross the channel? What are you escaping to actually want to come to this country? Why are we lambasting and demonizing these people, Jay?
I don't know, mate. I saw you tweet and you hit the nail on the head, and your little speech there hit the nail on the head as well, mate. It's just hypocrisy is worst. I think, the same people that are moaning about this are the same morons that were saying all lives matter a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
But it seems like they don't all matter. They matter if they're not, as long as they're British and probably white as well. I think, if you're taking those chances, you're right. If you're taking the chances of getting on a dinghy and risking going across the sea with your family, with your pregnant wife or your kids or whatever, there's a reason that you're doing it to escape something far worse, something far more treacherous. And I'm not going to say I've experienced this because I haven't, but I will talk a little bit about what I did experience, which was when I was in my old job as a reporter. We covered a story about Salford to Calais, delivering aid to the refugees at Calais. And I was covering it from a local angle, and then one of the sort of aid workers, it was just a group of families really who were getting food and blankets and stuff and taking them to Calais. So why don't you come with us? So I did, and went to the refugee camp in Calais. And Scotty, you've been at Glastonbury or not Glastonbury, any festival?
Yeah.
Like the day after the festivals ended, that was like what it was. It felt like, this was just a hovel. It was just filth everywhere. They were living in like corrugated iron huts. There was hardly any like proper sanitation. It was just a mess. And it was like these people, and I spoke to a couple of them. I mean, I spoke to a pregnant woman, funnily enough, and they'd fled worse. That's why they come there. Yeah. Because that for me was horrible. And I was like, I cannot imagine bringing, I think Mrs. at the time was pregnant with my son or just had my son. I can't remember the exact timings. I think I just had my son. And it was like, I can't imagine bringing my family to this. But they'd done that, not because they thought this was a utopia, but because it was a better situation than what they were fleeing, and they were safer. And that's what these people are doing. And, you say, Nigel Farage, the one thing I'll say about Nigel Farage that I won't say about some of the other right-wing idiots is that he's relatively intelligent and savvy, right? And bear with me, I've got no time for him, and this isn't a compliment. He knows what his words mean when he says them. Unlike some people who are just fucking thick. He knows. So when he says about Barack Obama, he's a vile creature. When he says about immigrants, it's an invasion. He knows what the cadence of those. Whereas when he says we won the EU referendum without a shot being fired. Now, I know he apologised for that a day later, but he knew what he was saying when he said it, in my opinion. He did. And he knows these things. When he stands in front of a poster full of brown people and then says, can you handle this? And then, I didn't realise. So I don't buy it. It's like he knows what he's doing. And I think he knows what he's doing when he says words like, it's just inflammatory, invasion. If that was in your garden, you wouldn't think. If those people were in your garden, you wouldn't be worried, let alone coming to a beach at the bottom of the country. It's what was 3 kids and 2 adults or 3 adults, or whatever. It's not an invasion. And then you've got Priti Patel saying, we're going to send in the Navy. Like we're being, we're up against Nazi warships. The U-boats are in. Yeah. Do me a favour. And also what made me laugh was one of the EU lawyers or someone tweeted. So, because they were saying, we need France to help us. And he was saying, you had an arrangement with France that made it France's responsibility to help you. It was called the European Union, and you're not part of that anymore. So you need to renegotiate. So all this taking back control, drivel that they've spoon-fed us or force-fed us for the past 4 years, whatever it's been, has just come unstuck at the first hurdle when it's like, we haven't got taken back any control, because now you're saying we don't control our borders because we're relying on the French to help us, and they don't want to help us anymore because we're no longer part of the EU. So it's a mess, and the usual suspects coming out, they're using it to just sort of fan the fires, and as you said, you know, how much of it as well is a distraction from the shit show that's going on with the pandemic and how they've handled that. And it's like, now we're all meant to be concerned because there's some families trying to escape hardship and death and devastation. And listen, I know the two aren't connected, but it's a reminder. No one was an accident. But when you saw what happened in Lebanon, and you see that that's like a dramatic, destructive thing that happened. I know it was an explosion, it was an accident. But those are the sort of situations where people are fleeing that aren't accidents, they're actually under real threat. And you think you'd do anything, you would. Like, you know, we have enough poverty. I get we've got poverty and everything in this country, and you do anything to feed your family, whether that was going to a food bank, whatever you had to do. But if your only choice was to flee the country to keep your family alive, would you do it? I would. Of course I would.
Yeah, well, 100%.
But if I was a choice between that or just staying and dying, then obviously I'd do it. So, you know, it's just people. I think maybe I'm being a little bit misplaced with my faith in humankind or the people of Britain, but I think a lot of people are seeing through this. You know, a lot of the media might not be the right wing media, you know, using the same old tired sort of tropes. But I think a lot of the British public is just like, do you know what? Who gives a shit? I sympathise with him. I do. I think there's a lot of that. And, you know, you got to remember as well, it's usually the fewest voices that are the loudest. So everyone thinks, oh, everyone's up in arms. Well, they're not. Just the people that are making a big stink about it. But they're the smallest number. So, yeah, I just think it's pretty disgusting the way some people are reacting. And personally, you know, do I blame these people? No. Do I get anger that they're doing it? No. I think fair play to him. And, you know, what's that going to physically affect me or you in terms of our tax or whatever? Is our tax going to go up because that? And even if it did, it'd be about 0.1p or something. It's not, you're not going to, do you know what I mean? You're not going to feel any sort of detriment to your life because of this. It's not like my kid can't go to school in September or whatever because it's going to be full of immigrants.
Yeah.
I mean, the best thing I saw was Nigel Farage moaning that they'd been given a tour of Anfield.
I'd be wanting to get the boat back across the fucking channel. Can you imagine that? You've come all the way from fucking Syria. You've had to go through all that hardship and avoid fucking ISIS and all that sort of business. And you get off this boat thinking you're going to fucking Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. And they take you up to fucking Anfield. You're like, Jesus Christ.
And you get it all six times, you know, la.
Yeah.
6 times you won it. You're like, what? What's this shit?
You know, what time's the P&O back to fucking France?
Makes you appreciate what you've got a little bit more.
Yeah, but I mean, you're right. My friend Bilal, he goes quite a lot out to sort of war-torn countries or places that these people are fleeing from, and he spent a lot of time in it was called the jungle, wasn't it? That was referred to by the British media. He spent a week out there, and I spoke to him, and he was in tears just recounting the stories that he had. But like you said, when that is the positive ahead of your actual place of home. These people don't want their home to be blown up or to be absolute shit. Do you know what I mean? But when these are the only options to give their families and themselves a better life or a chance at life, how can we even dare sort of look at that in a negative tone? The rhetoric that's used in it always throws up this book that I read back at university called Imagine Communities by a guy called Benedict Anderson. And I don't think I learned much in university from the lecturers and shit, but I picked up this book just because I was bored in the university one time. And what it goes on about is how we countries and nations are imagined communities because we actually believe we're part of something, but we'll never meet fellow members of our communities. You know, like Merthyr Tydfil, I've never met anyone down there, but because we live on the same island and the political system has made me think that I've got got things in common with them, or people in Essex that I've never been to, just because I speak the same language and we're under the same flag, that we're any different than people that come from another country. And that's why since about 2010, I've always said I'm from Manchester Earth. On any document that I have to sign, I never say I find that whole idea of nationalism abhorrent, and I think it's down to sort of divide and conquer, and you are doing it to sort of for political purposes. And that's why I find I'm really, really strongly opinionated when it comes to this, because they are just humans, they are just people, they are just families, they are just children that are trying to do their best things on this thing called Earth. And if anything through COVID has shown us, due to that someone having something to eat in China can affect the whole world, it just shows how close we are. So I don't understand why we're trying to push a divide between us when we should be really open arms. There are immigrants that come through. I've just come back from Sicily, and Sicily is a massive gateway from it. And the immigrants through Sicily, they're given jobs in like fruit fields and stuff like that. It's a completely different acceptance, when they come off the boats into Italy, than it is here. I just find it completely disgusting.
No, I agree. It's a sort of a similar-ish argument I've heard. I think it might have been going back to sort of like Robert Kennedy when he was a senator and when he started his presidential race. If you compare it like to in America, they pit people against each other in terms of like along racial divides and things like that. But if you're someone who lives in the Appalachian Mountains who's skint, and you're someone who lives in the Detroit ghetto who's skint, you've actually, one might be white, one might be black, but you've actually got more in common with each other than you think. Yeah. You've got the same problems, the same worries, the same stresses, the same sort of, just problems basically. And, has that white person got more in common with the white person that lives in Beverly Hills because they're both white? No. Has the black person who's living in Detroit or, South Central LA got more in common with the middle class black people that live in the suburbs? No, just because they're black doesn't mean, or do you know what I mean? There are similarities, but the point he was making was, if you're living in a certain way and you've got certain issues, doesn't matter what colour you are, and that's what sort of thing he was saying. You got more in common with, and it's what you're saying. I've probably got more in common with someone who's lives abroad, who's on a similar sort of, I don't know, sort of pay scale to me and family to me, and has the same number of kids and has the same sort of things are going through as I have, than I have with someone who lives in Knutsford, who's not knocking the person in Knutsford, who's got like £1 million house or whatever. Yeah, we're both technically living Greater Manchester, and I get where you're coming from, and I think we sort of turned our back a little bit. Some people did on this idea of globalization because of the 2008 crash, when it became like the world is a bad thing. Having been part of the world, we need to stop it. And you saw all this wave of populist drivel, Trump being the obvious fucking example. And it's like, America first, and then EU and a referendum, another one. We need to get out of this multilateral sort of thinking, and we need to just be focused on ourselves. And it's drivel, it's garbage. It is. It just doesn't make any sense. And it's unraveling all over the gaff. It's unraveling in America, it's unraveling here, in terms of the sort of how reliant we are on others and how much in common we have with others from different countries. And it's like it just pains me at times how sort of narrow-minded some people can be, and then they try and sort of push that onto you, and they try and tap into people's fears as well, and say like, well, why you're struggling? It's because of them. And come on, man, it's not because of fucking a dinghy full of kids coming into Dover that is going to be the reason that some of us may struggle to make ends meet at the end of this month. Do you know what I mean? It just ain't. No, it really isn't. It's is it their fault? No,
they're just families trying to do the best by but parents trying to do the best by their families, as you would or as I would. You make a great point. Like Audley Edge or Knutsford, I have very little in common because I don't have the same sort of lifestyle as them. If I'm going to be judged under an umbrella, I'm a family man, do you know what I mean? I'm a father and husband, and they're probably the two boxes that you could put me in. Are they any different to anybody else on the other side of the world? No, they're not. The reason borders don't exist, borders are invisible, borders are a man-made construct. Do you know what I mean? Borders were created by colonization, by when they were carving Africa up, when there was the great race for Africa, when they were like the great meeting. What was it? Belgium, Germany, Portugal, and England. Then they were all racing as to, right, well, I want this part of Africa and stuff. And it's all a massive man-made construct. And all it does is just divide people. And I think this, again, when you're talking about the black person in Detroit and the white person in the Appalachian Mountains, they're very similar. But when we start, these boxes need to stop when we start saying that, this is the black experience, this is the white experience, this is the Muslim experience. But within that bracket, like, you and Marcus Rashford are both black, but you don't live the same lives. Do you know what I mean? You do you know what I mean? Ja Rule and Dave Chappelle don't have the same black experience. Do you know? do you know what I mean? And it's just, we need to stop with this urgency that we have as a people, it's laziness just to sort of categorize everyone. And that's what I mean with the migrants. No, they're not. It's a pregnant mother. It's a father. It's a child. And the sooner we do that, we can start moving on to bigger and better things. Obviously, something that hasn't happened at the BBC recently with someone dropping not dropping the M-bomb. It was done on editorial advice. Apparently, they had sought guidance from above, and I'd love to have been in that meeting. And I wonder if there was a black person in that meeting. If you're looking for guidance on whether something's right or wrong, I'm pretty sure it's wrong. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. If you don't need guidance when you're doing the weather, or whether you're just doing a sports report on the football results. Yeah. If
I'm in the pub and I know to myself, oh, I might get in trouble if I have no pint. I know I'm getting in trouble. Do you know what I mean? That's a crass comparison. But if you're seeking that approval to do it, then surely err on the side of caution and don't do it. And I know that they actually saw it was the family that said they gave their blessing. But again, just because they're black and they're accepting of a white journalist using that word doesn't mean that the greater community of black people will be accepting of it. And now I have to ask, I'll ask you, Jay, as a black person, how did you feel on it?
For starters, one thing, you made a point there about the family said that they were okay with it or they wanted that. It's not. I think it's a bit unfair on them to put it on them. They're going through a lot anyway. I think the kids' injuries were horrific. They've obviously been the victim of this attack, and I've interviewed victims and stuff and spoke to them and the families, and it's an emotional sort of turmoil they're going through. It's not their responsibility to be in editorial control of what goes on on a news. You know what I mean? I think they've got enough on the plate without going, right, we've written these news scripts and here's what the report. We just want you to run over it and edit it for us. What? So yes, they can say we're happy for that to be used or we want that to be used, but it's not their choice. Yeah. Their choices are whether they want to appear on camera and give an interview, and that's up to them, of course. But other than that, then it's the editor's choice and it's the editor's decision from that and their own experience and their knowledge of how it comes across and what's legal and what isn't and how this is going to be perceived. And they just made a massive mistake. They made a massive error of judgment. There's no two ways about it. And you asked me a question, how do I feel about it? I like to have a choice on what my family hear.
Yeah.
I like to have that choice. Now, if I watch, for example, if I let my kids sit up and watch, I don't know, say MTV at midnight or whatever, or I know it's not on it, Channel U when that used to be on, for example, to use a sort of crass analogy or an old analogy, then I can't be moaning if they're hearing certain languages or certain language, that isn't appropriate because I've put them in a position where they're more likely to hear the N-word and swearing and stuff. But if I'm watching a news bulletin at 10 a.m. or whenever it was with my kids, I don't expect them to be exposed to that. Do you know what I mean? I think that's sort of taking my choice away from me. I remember when Piers Morgan, just to sort of make a comparison, a few years ago on GMB, I think it was. But it's about 8:30 in the morning. I was just flicking through and I seen Tommy Robinson waving the Quran around, calling it the doctrine of evil. And I'm like, why am I seeing that? Just because I'm getting the kids ready for school.
And if you're a young Muslim lad about to go to school, or if you're not if you're a white lad going to a school where there's Muslims and you've got someone in that, how
you just shite and watching it.
How dare you be able to get away with that?
Yeah.
How dare you be able to put that in young children's minds? How dare you?
Exactly. And it's like, do I necessarily my children or whatever? No, unless I choose to sell it to them or let them use that word, which I don't. And do I want to hear it myself? Not really. And I don't think it adds anything to the story or is necessary for the news story. I don't think you need to say that. Do you know what I mean? Now, at first, I think they'd be doubled down on it and said, well, the family said it. They were happy with it. We made a decision to sort of, do what we did. And then I think then they've issued an apology. And I want to get this right because I don't want to sort of misrepresent what happened. So I've just got it. I think the BBC at first said, this is from a news report, the family were anxious for the world to see the extent of the man's injuries and the racist language allegedly used during the hit and run. Now, I get that, and the lad's got horrific injuries, I think, which was shown, and I understand that you want to put out there and you want to say, look what they did. We were speaking, I think it was Emmett Till we spoke about the other week, where his mum said, he's going to have an open casket. Let them see what they did to my son. Yeah. Because as Dave Chappelle says, Emmett Till's mum was a gangster. And she like, there's what they did to my son. And that helped change things because people were like, that's fucking wrong. We need to do something about it. But this is a different sort of scenario here. Yes, they were like, wanted to do it. And then the BBC at first sort of came up with that reason. And now I think a little bit later, they said it was highly offensive. And we completely accept and understand why people have been upset by its use. Oh no, sorry. Tony
Hall came out today with an apology.
I think that was it. I think that initially was the explanation, and then that was the explanation, and then now they've come out with an apology about 2 weeks later or whatever it is. I mean, you hold your hands up. It's a mistake. I think some people. I think there was a lad from the Sidemen who's just said, "No, I'm not having it." But I think you got to learn from this and just say, you know what? It just doesn't need to be said at that time of day. It doesn't need to be said, even if it's in a news article. It doesn't add anything. It doesn't help anyone. It should be our choice whether we have that, not the choice of an editor at 10 o'clock in the morning. It's not. Yeah. It's not on. It's not. This isn't. We're not listening to a fucking Snoop Dogg album or whatever. So I think common sense has got to prevail in that. And I think it didn't. I think common sense went out the window and trying to sort of push it onto it was the family and all that. That's not really fair. And I think we've got to learn from this. Do you know what I mean? That word carries so much weight, and you should know by now what weight it carries, and you shouldn't throw it around lightly.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I work for the BBC, and when we're talking about umbrellas and how we sort of talk about certain races, we also tend to do it with corporations and people who work for certain organisations. Now, this has been a massively trying time for the BBC as a whole, but as someone who works there, there isn't a racist bone in the body. It's a wrong reaction that's been done, but I don't think that's indicative of the employees across the BBC, because there was a hell of a lot of turmoil within there. Not turmoil, there was a lot of pushback from people, white and black, within the BBC that were pushing back against that. There was a lot of complaints from the inside. So I don't want it to come across as though it is sometimes, again, like I said, in the cooperation, people see BBC, and I did it before I worked there, because all you see is the big black and white letters. And you sort of see it as sort of this monolith rather than the individuals that work there. And, I work for BBC Radio Manchester, and that they are such a fantastic group of people. And I just wanted to make sure that when people either see this or have this sort of feeling that it's from the whole of the BBC as an organisation, it really isn't. That was a mistake made by several people, but shouldn't be indicative of the whole of the organisation.
No, I mean, I'm with you on that, mate. You rang me the other day and said, can you come on the Talking Balls? And I did. I didn't say, well, I'm not coming on there. Because, I'm BBC, absolutely no chance after your.
No, but people do have that opinion on Twitter, though. On social media, people love to bash the BBC on social media.
It's an easy target because no one's going to really go, well, you're having to go to BBC. Or, I've seen some, you get it from all sides of the beam. And, I will have a go at individuals at the beam or whatever. I've had me with Twitter spats with certain bods. But, it's nonsensical to say that it's inherently this or that. I don't think it is at all. And I think it was just a massive error of judgment editorially. And one you got to learn from, man. You just got to learn from it. Suck it up and say we dropped a bullet. We know better, and we won't do it again for longer.
I'd be absolutely amazed if that even comes to the discussion again. And being the reporter, am I allowed to say no? You're not saying that.
You know what? This is different, right? But this is completely different. But I remember my old news editor, she was doing a news report once, and she said on live on air, and he called David Cameron a pompous twat.
Not wrong.
So went out at 5 o'clock in the afternoon on Kieran 3.
Brilliant.
But she meant to obviously edit it, but didn't. But yeah, I mean, this isn't a misspoken, is it? It's someone who's done it wrong. But talking of,
let me just ask you a quick question before you go on to the next point. When you were saying about the Tommy Robinson, the doctrine of evil, and what you want your kids to hear in the morning, I've never really spoken about this before, but this seems the right time to talk about it. Should the news be censored during the hours of what it's released? Because I've been in the car, and either doing the school run or driving anywhere, and it's 12 o'clock, and then the news jingle will come on and like, woman raped, and then you've got your kids in the back. Do you know? I've always thought to myself, oh, it's mass murder, bomb. Do you know what I mean? Like horrific crimes that need to be out there. And I'm thinking, does it need to be just after my kids have had the shredded wheats that I'm having to try and say? Rape's just,
what's a terrorist or what's rape? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Should that be thought about?
It is, right. I can only speak from my experience, and I know I always talk about my experience, but
it's good that's why I'm asking you.
Yeah, but I can't speak about, what they do at Sky News or how, Jeremy Paxman approaches it. I can only speak of what I did. Now, when I was at Key, we had this issue around the word rape. And school runs in specifically, it's mad you said that, because there was this thing where people don't want to hear that on a school run. You don't want your kids saying, "Mummy, what's that mean?" And that word, especially, and that crime especially, has horrific connotations, which we get. So we had a decision, and I'm not sure whether it was across the whole company or it was our newsroom. I think it was the company that we wouldn't use that word during certain hours or around certain hours. The school run hours, I think, were the specific ones. So from 8 o'clock, but from like 7 o'clock till 9 o'clock or whatever, we wouldn't use it. And then again from 3 o'clock till 5 o'clock or whatever. So just for that one reason you mentioned.
Yeah.
So then the problem is when you get something that is a high profile rate, like it's your top story, your lead story, it's it's whatever. It's newsworthy. It needs to be spoken about in the bulletin. How do you get around that? Because there was a bit of a debate going on. Because if you say there's been a serious sexual attack or sexual assault, that's a different charge. It's a different crime. I don't know if it still is, but when I was there, like sexual assault was different from
no. But I mean, even if you were using the word sexual, that again,
yeah, exactly. So then you do it, dilute it down, and so you just say attack, and I think that's how you got around it. A woman's been attacked, or a woman is. I don't want to go into it, but you get where I'm coming. A man has been charged. But I think the main problem was not with sexual crime. It was when someone had been convicted or charged. It's like man has been convicted of. Then how do you name that crime? Because you can't say attacking a woman. Is that what he's been convicted of? Because technically that's not true. And it was a proper minefield. And I think the short and long with it was you just didn't report that. You didn't even if it was newsworthy between those hours. I think that was the decision you made. But you're right. I mean, it was a thing, and especially with our audience, which was sort of our main demographic was.
Oh yeah, Key 103. Yeah,
it was like sort of. Women mainly of a certain age who had kids, so they don't want to hear that, and they'd be complaining or they'd be upset. And we used to have sort of training around it, and it was a minefield. But because as a news person, as a news reader or a news reporter, when I was a reporter, your job is to report the news, not to twist it or anything like that. It's literally, and that's what I used to love about radio, is because we weren't like tabloid, we were reporters. It was like literally, this has happened, this is when it happened, and this is what's happened because of it. There was none of that like, oh well, I think this is down to immigration or any of that shit. It was literally like, this has happened, and this is why.
Because radio by and large doesn't make money out of sensationalizing news, does it? Obviously, advertising is from the music and the
presenters want to talk about news and fucking give it their spin. That's up to them.
That's fine, but that's the difference between tabloid press. We're talking the other week about integrity in journalism, and that's why I was very specific to say more in terms of tabloid press, not so much radio press, because radio press isn't controlled by its news. I mean, it's important, it's an integral part of it, but it isn't the financial be all and end all. That they don't sensationalize because they aren't going to. It doesn't have the same sort of the pull, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the current situation is, but I know that news was very sort of ring fenced by Ofcom. So you had to be sort of local to a certain degree if you were a local station, as we were at Key.
Yeah.
I think you had one of your top 3 stories or something had to be a local story. I can't remember the exact rules.
I've had that.
Advertising and stuff.
I've had that, like, the amount of times I've had that in the sort of car, and like, going through like, it gets to, I don't know, 9 o'clock or whatever time the kids are in the car, and you've heard like a news story. I'm like, shh, what can I put on? And they're just like, oh, Wu-Tang Clan.
Well, it's like to a lesser degree, or it's kind of similar with the arena attack, where what happened with that was that we made a decision at K was to just stop naming Abeda. I know I've just named him now, but obviously I don't work for K anymore. But we stopped naming him because we thought, well, that
you're sort of helping. Yeah, you're helping. You're helping that Martin myth.
Yeah, so we would just say the arena attacker. That was how it was. Now, very rarely, you would have to name him with a court case or whatever. But for months or weeks, at least afterwards, we just stopped doing it, and it was just like the arena attacker, and it wasn't just his name constantly on the news. So I think, again, it's common sense, I think. And I know that I keep going back to it, but it is. Do you know what I mean? If your news editor has got kids himself, it's like, well, why would my kids hearing that at 8:30 in the morning? No. So, okay, what we're going to do? And you just, it does put you in a difficult situation, but not an impossible one. It's never an impossible sort of situation. You just got to make a judgment decision on it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And like have a sort of, I think it helps if you've got a policy where everyone knows the policy, so that it's not like an individual newsreader's got to make a split-second decision.
Yeah, sure.
Do you know what I mean? Because it's a high-pressure enough job when you've got a load of stories coming in, you've got to write your bullet in and all the other stuff, and then go on air as well without having to make these sort of mad decisions. So if you say, right, I know for a fact I can't say that, it's taken away from you, it just helps you. So I think they need to sort of look at it from the top and come out of that. But, as we've discussed earlier, the original point about the N bomb, which me and you don't use on air, is just fucking madness.
What are we going on to next then before I interrupted you?
Well, this one's popped up, hasn't it? I think it's today at the time of recording. Was it Dawn Butler been stopped?
Oh, she's been pulled over actually in London, yeah.
Yeah, now there's a bit of intrigue here because she was in a car going through Hackney and she got pulled over. Now she wasn't driving. She, I think a friend was driving. Now she's saying it's because of institutional racism, and that's what's happened. Now, some people are claiming that she wasn't driving. Didn't say she was. A friend was driving. Now, a friend's been blurred out, and some people are saying a friend is white. She's saying he isn't. I think he was black. I think he's just light skinned. But people are now trying to twist this into it's got nothing to do with racism. It was a white guy driving a car and all this fucking nonsense. But I think the point is, it's about stop and search and stopping and racial profiling. She says she's been the victim of it. The right wingers are pushing back, saying that she's not. There's a reason, or why was she filming it? There's just this sort of conspiracy theories going on, and I just think it's just adding this sort of fuel to this fire that's going on at the minute of not just from the back of Black Lives Matter and George Floyd and all that, but we've always had this problem with racial profile in this country of black people getting stopped far disproportionately compared to white people, and how that does, forgive the sort of amateur sociology here, but it's like the whole deviancy amplification spiral, I think they used to call it, where it's like a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy. Like they used to call it young black male, like if you're a young black man and you're always reading the papers about young black men getting into trouble, and police are always stopping young black men, then you're more likely to cause crime as a young black man because you're going to feel disenfranchised and alienated and hate the police and all this shit. And do you know what I mean? So it almost goes around in a circle of a circle of shit, for want of a better word. But like, because it's just amplifying everything and sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy almost.
Yeah.
And I do try and, you want to get away from that. And now I had a lot of experience of not stop and search. So yeah, not stop and search, but it was stop and search, it just wasn't often in the car because I didn't drive that much when I was in London, especially because I was there studying when it was probably not at its peak, because it's probably a lot worse in the 70s and 80s, but it was certainly very prevalent at the time because it was just after 7-7. There was all that sort of stuff going on. And my experience when I was at uni was a lot different when it came to stop and searches than a lot of my classmates. I used to get stopped a lot more. And I'd be with them sometimes, and I've come up the escalators at like the Angel station, tube station. There'd be police at the top. We'd all walk through, and I'd get a pull.
Yeah.
Just a stop and search, just a random stop and search. Now, I was a mature student. I think me and you've spoken about this in the past. And I'd changed my ways. And I almost saw it as a badge of honor, the fact that I was getting stopped when I hadn't done nothing wrong for a change. So I was like, yeah, you want to stop me? Yeah, not a problem, officer. Yeah, search me. Not an issue. Yeah, you want my name here? Yeah, not a problem. But it's not great, and it's not nice when it happens a lot. And I had some friends and classmates who, my mate Taha, he got stopped a lot. And this is a guy, he's just a student, a 20-year-old student, studying for his A-levels, not for his A-levels, sorry, for his degree, getting stopped a lot. Do you know what I mean? Just a random, stop and search. And it gets in your head, man. And you do feel like it's me against
targeted.
Them sort of thing.
Targeted.
Yeah. And it's it's not great.
It's subconsciously fed. I don't know what you were saying about amateur sociology, but I believe it's subconsciously fed through the newspaper and the rhetoric that's used on in newspapers and across a lot of journalism, because it's black man Justin Mottershead, it'd be white David Scott, it's Muslim blah blah blah. It's not, you know what I mean? If they're a black person, they seem to have to, or anyone of color, or anyone who's not white straight male, they have to have the sort of tag beforehand, before they sort of show what club they belong to beforehand, and then the more that sort of propels, then that becomes this in the psyche, and you get that in the police force and in the larger society. It's talking back to when we were talking about migrants and stuff.
You're right. I mean, I think it was Akala, who we both love, made the point, I think, when he went toe to toe with Tony Robinson. Did we say Christian Jimmy Savile? Did we say white, sex offender when it's a sort of not a Muslim? No, but when it was a Muslim, that became a thing. Yeah. And a lot of the time when it's a black guy who's done something, and when I was a kid, I've been guilty of this shit. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I hear it a lot, and I used to sort of buy into it. Oh yeah, I had a fight with this black guy. What's his colour got to do with it? He's just trying to, you know what I mean? Like, it's a negative thing, or it's going to make it look better, or make it look harder. You mentioned that. Why? No, it doesn't. Do you know what I mean? Fall into it, and then I got to the point when as I got older, I used to hear it, and I used to say, and it used to wind me up. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, what relevance has his colour got to do with it? None. So you're right about that. The papers do play a part in that, and they do it. And I've always said this about, you mentioned Muslims, the headlines and the front pages that Muslims have to deal with, even as a black person, it pales into comparison. British Muslims want jihad. British Muslims hate Britain. British Muslims want this. Muslims vote for, say they welcome Sharia law, and it's bollocks. And
it's never, and then you flip it round. It's never Muslim doctor saves lives. It's never a Muslim surgeon in the NHS has done this miraculous thing. It's never that.
Exactly. And I'm going to forget his name here. Nazir Afzal. Thank you. That's who I was trying to think of. Who prosecuted the Rochdale grooming gangs when the prosecution was ended. And he said, there's a case here. No, it's not. We're going to reopen it. Now, he's a British Muslim. Does he get the people focus on his ethnicity and say, it was a British Muslim that cracked the case on that one, or that reopened it and got them prosecuted and sent them all to prison? I
didn't even know that.
You didn't even know that? You didn't even know that, right?
No.
But you bet you knew that the offenders were all Muslim.
I know. I knew the case, because a Muslim sex ring is not. You know what I mean? It's never just a sex ring.
I mean, if you're going to do it that way, then do it both ways. At least say Muslim sex ring broken by Muslim solicitor, prosecutor. But they don't. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, it's the whole thing. Like, you look at the Joe Cox murder. When her killer got convicted, I think there's a Daily Mail had it on page 14.
Yeah.
The first political assassination in this country, I think, for hundreds of years. And he made page 14 when he got prosecuted of a right-wing paper. because he was a right-wing person.
And he was mentally ill as well, wasn't he? Wasn't Clay? Was it classed as a terrorist? Or if it's anything done, it's done in the eyes of being a right wing terrorist attack. It's never. They're never terrorists either.
Do you know what made me laugh? Well, it didn't make me laugh. It almost made me cry. It was like fucking tragic. I think it was Louise Mensch. Someone did an article, and she said he can't have been racist. He had a mixed race brother-in-law he was fond of. And I thought, that's up there with the Chris Finch of how can I hate women? My mum's one. School of fucking idiocy. Do you know what I mean? It's like, what? How have you thought that? How have you wrote it down? How's an editor approved it? And how's it been published in a fucking paper?
Yeah.
It's absolute garbage. And I feel like, it says when I don't mean to be sort of patronising concerned, but I do feel sorry for young British Muslim people in this country, the amount of garbage you must have to read about themselves, because it pales, even as a black person, it pales into comparison. Do you know what I mean? And going back to the original thing with Don Butler, for me, you have to look at why this keeps happening. And also, a big part of it isn't even the stopping the searches and the stops and the profiling. It's how they're carried out is a big part as well. Because I've had it where, yes, it can make you angry and you can react and you can do those sort of things. When I was younger, I did. And I get that. But you need coppers and police officers who just, if they are going to do it, when they do it right. I'm not justifying it because I think it's completely, as you said, it's I can't remember the word you used. It's not disproportionate. You used the word, but you're right, disproportionate, whatever. Targeted, I think you said, targeted. But when you're doing it as well, try and be a bit more empathetic to the person you're dealing with. You don't have to be coming in all heavy-handed and condescending and just like, you know what I mean? It's like, I've had it, and I think maybe it's because I was a little bit older as well, and when I got stopped, I was like, wasn't kicking off, where they'd be all right, but they need to go out with everyone. Because if you stop a young man and he's get angry about being stopped, then you've got to not react with anger towards him. You've got to be understanding that could be that. You might have only stopped one black guy that week, but that might be the 5th time he's been stopped himself, and he's angry and he's fed up with it. And he could be only got like my mate was, or we were, go to uni, to and from lectures, getting stopped constantly. What's in your bag? Books. Do you know what I mean? Can I have a look? Yeah, if you're fucking interested in, contemporary history and journalism, fill your boots. Do you know what I mean? If you want to read about T-line shorthand, this is the one for you. Yeah,
they shouldn't interrogate as though they are a convicted criminal that has escaped prison. Suspicion does not give you the right to go heavy-handed, like you say. It should be done in a cordial way unless you're felt unless you're feeling threatened by the individual that you're approaching.
Yeah, and and we've seen it. We've seen the video footage. We've seen it where they're just overreacting. They're overly violent. You got young lads, usually young men, who are just frustrated, and half the time they're not even doing anything wrong. But then they're getting cuffed and manhandled and all that sort of stuff. And again, it goes back to my other point. It's just this amplification spiral. So it'll be interesting to see what pans out with Dawn Butler. She's obviously, she's already getting flack from the right winger who saying the driver was white, or she's made a drama out of it. I don't think she does, and I don't think you can tell what colour the driver is from its blurred out image. She said he's black, I believe her, and the complexion of him is irrelevant. Ice-T, for example, is light skinned, but he's a black man. So that doesn't prove anything. I'll just be interested to see what happens on the back of this, because when you've got MPs getting stopped in that way, that's usually when people start taking notice. But we'll have to wait and see, because we've been here before, haven't we? Unfortunately.
Yeah. From these shores over to Dickie Donald Trump, what's been happening over in the White House?
Fucking hell, mate. It's hard to keep up in it. Well, did you see that we spoke about the interview from hell? Did we speak about that? I can't remember. We did. The one that he did with Jonathan Swan.
No,
just a car crash interview, ridiculous interview where he sat down with Jonathan Swan, who's for HBO, and Jonathan Swan was like asking him about how he's handled the pandemic, and he had these pieces of paper, and he's like, we're doing really well, we're lower than the world. And Jonathan Swan was like, well, what does that mean? Lower than the world? It was like a comedy thing. It was like a comedy. It's like the thick of it. I think we spoke about it. He did that. And then obviously he's going down the polls. Biden's rising. So he's sort of come out fighting this week, and he's come out with this sort of thing of like, I'm going to use an executive order to help with the relief and help with certain loans and student loans and stuff like that and unemployment. But people are saying that he's actually doing the opposite. He's sort of gutting social security with these cuts that he's making because he's doing some sort of tax cut, but it's not helping. And it seems like, it's a bit of a misleading thing. But the main thing that's been going on is this. Well, one of the main things is that he's on about these sort of fraudulent votes via mail. So there's this sort of belief that he's trying to stop the mail votes from happening because he thinks that he's going to lose the election.
We did briefly touch on this about him.
And he's sort of doubling down on this, and it's interesting to see where this is going to end up because he signed this executive order to provide economic aid for the pandemic after talks with Congress broke down. Now he's playing that as like he's helping everyone. The Democrats are saying he's not. This is sort of it's a load of half-baked measures that aren't going to help the people that need it the most. He's doubling down on the mail thing, and it just seems like for me not the hot take, but the obvious thing you can take from all this is over the next 90 days, it's going to get messy. There's going to be all sorts going through with him. One of the things that came out the other day as well was the fact that his team, I think, had been making inquiries into adding his face to Mount Rushmore, which, have you ever heard anything more of a 2020 story than that? Team, like, wanted to put him next to Teddy Roosevelt and Abe Lincoln on Mount Rushmore. What are you fucking on about? What are you on about? He's probably not. He's lucky if he gets a second term. He's one of the most hated presidents ever, and he wants to put himself alongside the likes of Abe Lincoln and George Washington, or whoever it is, on Mount Rushmore. They'd actually made an inquiry into it about doing it. I think it got, it's dead in the water. But it's going to get messy. It's going to be all sorts of fuckeries. And also, you've got this looming thing hanging over it. It could be a second spike in America, which could affect them in November because come hell or high water, they're going to be voting in November.
And the thing is, the Midwest is apparently getting massively affected now, which is a lot of his ground, isn't it?
He won the election because he flipped the blue states in the Midwest.
Yeah.
I think he flipped Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, all went for him, I think. And which historically it were Democratic states, and the fact that he was able to win them sort of won the election and cost it Hillary Clinton, but he's massively behind in most of those states. I think in Texas it's neck and neck, which is unheard of. Florida is trailing. I think he needs Florida as well. So he's not having the best time of it, and obviously the thing he's got with his mailing things, he's happy for the mail-in votes in Republican states, but not in Democrat states, which obviously doesn't make any sense. So it's a mess. It's going to be a mess, and you're going to see all sorts of shit going on for the next 90 days, and back and forth and usual. I just think, I'm not a massive Joe Biden fan, as you know, but he's obviously a better option. And I think the main thing for him to do is just stay out of the fucking way.
Yeah, it would probably. Do you think it would take a car crash or some sort of controversy from Joe Biden's side to ball this up? Has he got pretty much an open goal and just allowing Donald Trump to be his own undoing?
Yeah, I think that the Biden is a bit gaff prone at times. He had one recently where he said that blacks communities aren't as diverse as Latinos. I mean, it was overstated. Like the criticism I felt like Trump jumps on it and said, "Oh, he's lost the black vote now." He hasn't, but he's got to be careful because he can say a few things sometimes, and you're like, really. But yeah, he's 2-0 up with 10 minutes to go. He's just got to not fuck it up. But we've seen it before with US elections. You can have a game changer. You can have a moment. He could do something. Trump may start winning back support if he portrays himself as the savior, signing these executive orders to help relieve, and people start believing it. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's an eternity, 90 days. But he does have this massive lead, Biden. So I just think he's got to stay out of the way. A big question is, are they going to have debates? Trump says he wants a debate. Biden says he wants a debate, but for some reason not planned. And for people sort of hinting that it's Trump who's not too keen on it because he could get unstuck with some of the claims that he keeps making that aren't true. Yeah. Because if it's on a national debate with Biden, he can pick them out. The flip side to that is Biden, he has senior moments. He's 77 and sometimes he acts it. I think he's 77. So he could end up saying something or getting a bit confused during a debate, which would portray him as this sort of befuddled old timer, and Trump as the sort of man of steel who knows what he's doing. So it's not a good look. But I just think, I think Biden just needs to stay out of the way and just let Trump just do what Trump does, because every time he opens his gob, 9 times out of 10, it hurts him.
Yeah, and I'm sure that we will be laughing and offering commentary on that over the next 90 days. This has been a fantastic chat. Listen, if it's UK politics, US politics, what's going on all over the world, we are a globe after all, and there is shit kicking off all over it in 2020. I've been Scotty. That's been Motty. Thanks everyone who's been getting in touch. Comments and share, please get in touch. We've been trying to respond to everybody. It's been emailing stuff. Throw suggestions about what you want to talk about and stuff, and tell your mates. But until next time, I've been Scotty, and that way, that's Motty, not behind me. That one there. High five.
Wait. Oh, so